Hi, it's Jeff Alpin, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Career Coach Office Hours for February 15th, 2022. I spend some time twice weekly. Currently, it's Tuesdays and Fridays at 9:15 a.m. Eastern, but beginning with the first show in March, I'm going to be switching to a 1 o'clock time. So I'm just finding that I don't get, oh, I'm getting messages from people on the West Coast that it's too early for them to be live. So I'm trying to be considerate of those there. And I understand it's 6:15 a.m. for them. So I'll just simply say I do this show to do live Q&A with people about job search, hiring more effectively, management, leadership, and resolving workplace issues. So I'll just say, oh, I clicked the wrong one. Let's close that and go to this one. So if you've got a question about job search, hiring, management, leadership, or want some advice about a particular workplace issue, put that into chat and I'll cover it during this show. And also, my website, thebiggamehunter.us, is a place where you can schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session, my blog, which has over 12,000 searchable posts. Find out about my books and guides to job search. And I'm also going to remind you that JobSearchTV.com on YouTube is a phenomenal resource with more than 7,000 videos there. No BS Job Search Advice Radio is available, and it's the #1 podcast in Apple Podcasts for job search. 2,300 plus episodes over 11 plus years. It's available as a video podcast on Spotify if you prefer it in that format. It's also on Amazon Music, Google Play, wherever you'd listen to shows. So I start off today with a coffee toast, as I always do. And it's to salute those of you who made time from a busy day for Valentine's Day with someone important to you. Now, I know you love your work. Hopefully, there's someone you love even more than your work. So, my toast to you for actually having a little bit of balance in your life and taking some time for the one that you love. And if you have kids, I hope they didn't mind too much that you spent a little time with them. So, the questions I received in advance of this show were all about job search. So, again, I want to remind you, if that's not for you, if you have something else you want to address, by all means, put it into chat. I'll be happy to cover it, okay? So the first question for today is, how creative should a cover letter be? So creative has two possible definitions, and I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Creative could be style, the appearance of the cover letter. And the other definition could be fictional. How much lying should I do in my cover letter? The answer is on the first one, the appearance of the cover letter. You don't want to have so much artistic so much artistry displayed in the cover letter that distracts from the message of the cover letter, which is to demonstrate your fit for the role as you understand it being defined by the institution. So keep the focus on that. Yes, it can have a wonderful appearance, and there are many ways to do that. If you're applying and you're submitting it as an email, again, remember, put it into the body of the email and not as a separate attachment. If you're uploading it, make it page 1 of the resume and ensure that it's stuffed with keywords that demonstrate your fit for the role. So remember, applicant tracking systems like to see relevant information high up on page 1. So what you can do is flush left, put the requirements of the position and the functionality, flush right, you put how long and how recently you've performed that. If you haven't done it, you just omit it and just put the other things there. And thus what you've done is stuff keywords onto page 1 of your resume that'll make the system believe that you're qualified to do the job. So how creative should you be? Let me go to the second answer, lying. So you get the interview and you lied your way in the door. How are you going to back up that play? Can you back it up? Can you talk the talk and then once on board, walk the walk? It's one thing to study and to prepare for a test. It's another thing to do the work day in and day out. And for a lot of folks, that's a lot harder. So again, I'm just going to remind you, yes, you can get the interview, but can you deliver? If you can't deliver, don't waste your time. Don't waste their time either. Okay? That's my first question for today. If a new hire knows within 2 to 3 months that the job is a bad fit for them, should they quit then or wait a full year to not look like they're job hopping? It depends. And the depends is what's the history that you have in your background up until that point. Firms are very willing to be tolerant of people who made a mistake if they don't make lots of mistakes. If you're a contractor, having done temp work for 5 years, aggregate the dates of your temp assignments into a category that says, consultant and the 5-year dates, excuse me. And thus, you can show that you're not a job hopper, you were a consultant, and then the new firm can appear above it. For the 2-month period, I wouldn't put that into the resume while you're looking. I would just continue with the previous resume. And I'll just also say that I always encourage people to keep looking, keep interviewing during the first month or two after they join a firm, for the simple reason that if the hiring manager misrepresented the opportunity, you're not stuck. It seems like you're in this situation where the job isn't right for you, for whatever the reason is, but you believe there was going to be one way, it isn't. Get out of there. Seriously, get out of there and do it sooner rather than later, because you can't cover up 6 months. You can't cover up 9 months, but you can move on after a month or two. So don't hesitate, head out the door, okay? So I'm just going to remind you to put your questions about job search, hiring better, management leadership, or if you're looking for advice about a particular workplace issue, put those into chat. I'd be happy to answer your questions. Next question. Why was a job reposted after my interview went well? Well, there are a lot of reasons. Yeah, and I'll just say among the reasons is the employer ran an ad and the job board offered them the ability to auto post for an additional 30 days without any effort on their part. It's an automatic reposting. There are sites that do that, and that could be why that's happened. Another reason is that until someone starts a job, they view the position still open. And just because you got past the first interviewer doesn't mean that you'll get past interviewers 2 through 7 who are also involved in the process. From their vantage point, the job is still open until you walk through the door and you've worked there for a few weeks. This is like the mirror of the previous answer where I talked about if they've misrepresented, you should head out the door. Well, if you disappoint them or you walk out the door, they just keep talking to people. And I'll just also say, maybe you didn't do as well as you thought you did. That's also a possibility. So those are a couple of reasons that the job listing is still there. And which one of those apply or others, I don't know. But those are a couple of possible reasons why that might have happened. So next question is, job searching typically takes several rounds of interviews followed by waiting periods. It can be a long process. Do I think job hunters should be paid for interviews? No, except under one circumstance. And there I do believe a person should be paid. And that circumstance is when someone's being given a homework assignment that's going to take time, and they have to bring this in to demonstrate the quality of the work. So you pay for that. And yes, I do believe a person should be paid under those circumstances. If you're just going to an interview, answering questions, and heading out and waiting for a reply, no. But if you're being given additional work to do, I've had clients of mine give homework assignments to people and they pay them for it. It wasn't a significant amount of money, but it does demonstrate integrity on their part to do that. If you're given homework to do and they're not talking about being paid to do, about you being paid to do it, I would discourage you from doing it and simply say, this is going to take 5 hours of my time. As a result, I'd like to be paid for that. And I've seen situations over the years where firms are receiving free consulting. It's crazy. I don't want you being abused in that way. And I've seen situations, or actually I've read about it, a couple of situations where a firm did ask someone to do app development for them and then wound up taking their work and marketing as a product. So I don't want you being taken advantage of or abused. So if you're given work to do off hours, ask to be paid. If they say no, I don't think so. This is not going to be for me. I'm happy to answer all your questions, but once you give me work to do off hours or in situations like that, I'm going to politely decline. Ravindra, hi, how are you? Welcome to Career Coach Office Hours. And if you have a question, please feel free to put it into chat. Be happy to answer it for you. Okay? Let's go to the next question in the meantime, because I've got a bunch. And today it's about job search, but most of the time it covers some other things, related to hiring better, management leadership, or dealing with people's workplace issues. So someone wanted me to answer, what does this mean? Unfortunately, I cannot disclose how many applicants we have for our positions, but I can tell you that you're a finalist, and that's why we started doing a background check. And they want to know if they're hired and have the job. The answer is not yet, because you're a finalist doesn't mean you're the only finalist. You could be one of 12 finalists that they've brought back, having reviewed 25 people. They don't want to tell you how many people have applied, how many people they've interviewed, or how many finalists they have. They have their reasons. Personally, I don't think it's necessary to be quite that obtuse, but I do think they've made this decision. You are still competing. And as I tell people all the time, even if you're the only one being brought back, you're competing with the notion that there are other people out there who are better than you. So you're still selling. You're still trying to promote yourself and demonstrate you being qualified to do this role. You're still evaluating and assessing them, right? Because you could still say no. But no, you haven't been hired yet. They haven't decided to bring you on board yet. They're still evaluating, and you're competing. Why do recruiters reach out to candidates who are unqualified for position? That's pretty easy. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is they made a mistake. Number two is they've used technology to do the reach out. They did a search of their system, did a search on LinkedIn, and they did a mass search using, like they may be a user for LinkedIn Recruiter, and it turned up, let's say, 150 people. So they're not going to look at 150 profiles. That's too labor intensive. So what they do instead is do a bulk in-mail, and they can do, I believe, 100 at a time. And remember, with LinkedIn Recruiter, they get 100 in-mails per month. They may get some carryover from previous months, but each month they receive 100 in-mails that they can message people. If you respond in any way, including, no, not for me, thank you very much, or sure, I'd be real interested, or tell me more, that in-mail is credited back to them. So they're reaching out to people based upon keywords in your profile, and that's caused them to be told by the system that you might be qualified. Also, if they did this through their own database, they're not looking at 150 or 1,000 profiles that may be out of date. They're just doing a bulk email and trying to get you to respond to the requirement and forwarding your resume. So that's a couple of reasons why you've been approached by recruiters or know of people who've been approached by recruiters who are unqualified for a position. Let's see now. Next question. Let me just read the question, then I'll comment. Why do some minority job candidates say it's a sham interview if they don't get the job? But if a minority candidate gets the job, the person complains that others think they got it because they're a minority. I loathe this question because it's obviously someone who's never been in that seat before and doesn't know what it's like. Janice, hi, welcome. And thank you for joining. I appreciate it. And if you have a question, put it into chat. I'd be happy to answer it for you. Let me just answer this one first before I answer any of yours. Okay. So if you've ever been in the situation where you had an interview that you knew was a sham, you know it's BS. And I don't care if you're a person of color, I don't care if you're a white person, and you're in a situation where you think that they're just doing this interview to present an H-1B candidate and say, no, they're not qualified. This other person, this non-H-1B candidate, isn't qualified. We want this one who happens to have an H-1B, and they're trying to demonstrate to the Immigration and Naturalization Service that they did an exhaustive search and they couldn't find anyone. They're going through a sham interview, and you know it at the time. So understand, people can smell BS, and you put on a great performance, you give great answers, you're laughing and joking with the interviewer, you've made a solid connection, and then it's not you, it's someone else. People smell the fact that they stood no chance. Or, by the way, it could also be, it's one of those incoherent interviews where the person's disengaged entirely, and they wind up in situations where you just know it's a waste of your time. So that's the first part of this scenario. People can smell BS. Like there's a former NFL football coach who recently sued the National Football League, saying he was only interviewed for these jobs because of their regulation that says before you hire someone, you have to guarantee that you've interviewed 2 minority candidates. So he thought he had sham interviews. He sued the league, and I wasn't in the room. I don't know what's true or what isn't, but that was his sense of it, and he sued. Now, the other part of this is the frustration if you're a minority candidate that you're hired, and the other individuals say, they were an affirmative action hire. They were a token hire to demonstrate fill in the blank. Whoever wants to be downplayed and dismissed as being someone who was only hired because they were a minority candidate, who would ever want to be in that situation? So remember, Again, I'm not in the room. I don't know what's going on there. You aren't either. And when you ask a question like this, you have no idea what it's like to be in someone else's shoes dealing with these situations and how frustrating it can be. I remember even for me as a recruiter going into meetings, um, and my favorite one was at a time where this was extremely high rate. Uh, I met as part of a group of 6 recruiters who were brought in by HR at an organization who want to understand why it was we weren't able to deliver people for this one manager that they were supporting. And my wife at that time, we're not married any longer, and she's not alive any longer. That's a different story. I'll just simply say she told me that the consultant who was on billing there, that hiring manager hired someone with ordinary skills, brought them from the UK, and was paying $1,500 an hour for skills that in the US were maybe $50, $60. So I sat there during the meeting and I understood, clearly why no one was getting hired for full-time work, and that is there was some arrangement that this hiring manager was profiting from. So kickback, I don't want to make an accusation, but clearly he was profiting by this arrangement where they're bringing in someone from the UK and paying the expenses of that person plus $1,500 an hour for someone that they could get stateside for 50 or 60. So, there are many reasons why this kind of stuff occurs, and you know it. You know when you're in situations where you stand no chance. I applied to a job and a recruiter asked me if I was still working as a freelancer. If the answer is yes or no, what difference does it make? Well, if it's a yes, their concern is you really want to do freelance work, you're off assignment, and when you find another assignment, you're going to go back and go back to freelance work. If you are not working freelance and can be personally convincing that what you're doing is interviewing for a full-time job because you want full-time work, that's a different scenario. So they're just trying to get the pulse of what your real intentions are. And in doing so, they're just trying to figure out, are you still contracting? What do you do to finish up? Are you sure you want full-time? Because that's what we're hiring for. We're not trying to hire a temp or a contractor. We want someone full-time. And the result winds up being they're trying to sort things out about you and figure out whether you're serious in joining full-time. 2 more. What are your views on reapplying for a job if they turned you down before? When I did recruiting, I remember these were the days where you'd have to fax resumes. That'll give you an idea how long ago this was. There was one client I had, and I had a candidate with a great resume for a particular job they had. And I submitted it one time, no response. I would ask, no response. A second time, no response. Third occasion, they interviewed them and they hired them. So can you reapply? Yes, but let me give you some data to work with. Number one is, how recently did you apply and actually were turned down? I'm not talking about having your resume ignored, but you were actually turned down based upon an interview. If it was fairly recent, they're probably not going to be interested unless it's a similar position in a different group. And in the first interviews, you did well, but they chose someone else. So those are the predicates here for making that determination. If it's a year ago, you've changed, the position has probably changed. No issue with applying. Go ahead and do it. Especially if, again, you did well. It's probably in their notes about you in their system. So Again, recent, no. Recent, different group, and you done well on your interviews? Yes. A year ago, and you're looking for something else at the same firm? No issue. Go ahead and apply. So that's their thinking about it. That's my thinking about it. And I hope that's helpful to you. Last question for now, unless someone puts one in the chat. How would you let recruiters in any company know that you'd be available for new job opportunities? Well, if you've had relationships with them before, like actually spoken with them, you can message them. You can IM them through LinkedIn. You could put a quick call into them, leave voicemail to say, I've come back available. You helped me 6 months ago, 6 years ago, whatever, when I was doing such and such. This is what I'm doing now. I'm available. Would you like to speak? They'll ask for a copy of the resume just to save a little bit of time. You can apply and send it. That's one way of doing it. Another way is if they know you through LinkedIn, you can change your status on LinkedIn to open to work. And you can do that. I believe you'd have to click on your photo on the top ribbon of LinkedIn to get access to some of your privacy settings. And from there, what you do is make the change to indicate that you're open to work. That will notify people that you're connected with that you're open to work. It may, if you're not connected with this recruiter, they won't know it, but other recruiters will see it. When they're searching through LinkedIn, using LinkedIn Recruiter or other means, they'll discover that because LinkedIn prioritizes those responses or to searches over others, and thus people will know that you're actively looking. So those are a couple of things to do to generate that. I hope you found today's show helpful. I'm going to sign off, and while I'm doing that, if you have a question, put it into chat. If not, I'll just say I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I'll be back Friday with more at 9:15 a.m. Eastern. I hope you enjoyed your Valentine's Day yesterday. And So there's a lot more at my website, thebiggamehunter.us. You can schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session, visit my blog with more than 12,000 searchable posts. It's a great resource. You can find out about my courses, my books, my guides, a whole bunch of things at the website. And also, I'm going to encourage you, JobSearchTV.com on YouTube, more than 7,000 videos there. No BS Job Search Advice Radio and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Play, or wherever you listen to podcasts is another wonderful resource I make available. More than 2,300 episodes over 11 plus years. We're still going strong. I haven't made a decision when to stop doing it, but I'll just simply say there's a lot there that will help you. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn if we're not already connected at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Lastly, I introduced something yesterday that's new, and I hope I remember this name correctly. It's No BS Career Advice. It's a newsletter I'm doing every other week that will cover some of the same issues I do here: job search, hiring, management, leadership, and I do a quote of the day as well. Hope you have a terrific day, and most importantly, be great. Take care.